What would you do if you knew, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that you could be happy now? Not tomorrow, not some future date, but truly happy now, regardless of anything happening around you. And I'm not just talking about being a little happier than you are now, or happier than others around you. I'm talking about the ability to be ecstatically, almost orgasmically happy from head to toe throughout your body at any moment. Imagine you could do that. What would it do to your life? Would it give you different goals, a different career? Would it change the way that you looked at the world? There's so many possibilities. These are some of the questions I began to ponder as I ended a long and painful relationship in 2016. Back then, I was living in a way that was anything but enlightened. Imagine starting your day with a huge cup of concentrated coffee. Think the equivalent of 8 espresso shots, then adding a wakefulness drug and a small dose of Adderall, all so you could power throughout the day without food or rest. This is what I was doing each morning, and it was literally deep frying my nervous system. I was constantly behind on work, worried about money, and eager to find the love that I had lost in my relationship. I didn't know it at the time, but there was no way that I could continue to go on like this. I knew that after a long time, I was going to free fall and that I was going to crash and that my entire life was going to collapse if I didn't do something drastic, something dramatic. Thankfully, a light bulb started to go off and I began to search for answers. I knew that there had to be some way. I felt like there must be something beyond survival, something that had to be more, there had to be more to life than this. Then one day I was listening to a podcast and I heard something about something called neurofeedback. Neurofeedback is a therapeutic modality most often used with children who have ADHD. Now, neurofeedback involves putting tiny little electrodes on your scalp, and then it reads your brainwaves. Now, neurofeedback, the premise of it is that it gives you a reward for producing more of these positive brainwaves through chimes and through bell sounds. So, what are good or positive brainwaves? Well, researchers have found that there are specific brainwaves that are directly correlated to states of happiness, joy, and peace. In one example, researchers at the University of Wisconsin studied monks who had meditated for 50,000 hours, think decades and decades of intense meditation. And they found that these monks produced a very high level of a certain brainwave called gamma, which is directly connected to intense states of bliss and compassion and peace. In one of the monks that they studied, they even called him the world's happiest man due to the extraordinarily high levels of gamma that he produced. Now, I didn't know any of this when I walked into my first week-long neurofeedback intensive in Sedona, Arizona. All I knew that was I was unhappy, exhausted, and desperate for help. Within days of training my brain through this technology, I went from suffering to normal. And then days later, I went from normal to experienced monk level. I walked out of there a completely different person. I was no longer addicted to caffeine, wakefulness drugs. My work and income skyrocketed. I healed the pain over my failed relationship, and my life started to take on a truly magical quality. It was amazing, and naturally, I only continued to deepen that work after the time. Within a year, I was at the same level. My brainwaves were at the same level as the monks who had meditated for 50,000 hours. And the brain scans that they had through the medical technology that they were using actually confirmed it. I was really in that same blissful state. The only difference was I hadn't moved to a monastery, I hadn't given up money, become celibate, or renounced the world in any way. I was just an ordinary person who somehow managed to stumble upon extraordinary levels of joy, peace, and happiness. In the process, I learned something really, really profound. I learned that the age-old cliche that true happiness comes from within is both true, but also not very helpful. Mostly because it gives you no insight into the actual biological mechanism that actually generates happiness. Think about it. Isn't this the most important question in life? How can we be truly happy? And then the problem is everywhere we look, we seem to get mixed signals. On one hand, the world says, you can't be happy until you have a certain amount of money, an ideal relationship or love, or maybe the achievement of some sort of ambitious goal. Then that's not satisfying, and we get into spirituality, and that says none of that matters. Happiness is about connecting to some mysterious element within or to a higher power. And while I think that there's some truth to that, I also intellectually knew that before I crashed, and it didn't help me. For me, it was infinitely more useful to see what I saw in my neurofeedback training, which is namely that happiness is just happiness, bliss. All of those states are just neurological and biological capacities that we all have access to, no different than walking, eating, sleeping, or running. The problem is no one ever teaches us how to use our biology to access those states. So we wander and seek and ultimately suffer in ways we might never need to if we only had an owner's manual into how we can use our biology to access those states. The moment that you learn how to do this, everything begins to change. As I got better and better at this and learned how to cultivate and control my brainwaves and access these states, people began coming to me, and my life started changing in really, really profound ways. One of the ways in which it shifted was I got invited into some very elite circles. Think crypto billionaires, music moguls, Hollywood elite, top Silicon Valley VCs, the list went on and on. Everyone wanted to know this scientific secret to happiness that I had somehow uncovered. And for those who I shared it with, and that those who started to do this work, the impact was immeasurable. Many of them were able to access levels of joy that they could never access through their extreme levels of success. My message to them was always the same message that I have here today. Happiness isn't some mysterious or elusive thing that is way out there. It's actually just a simple, ordinary neurological and biological capacity that we all have access to. It's a capacity that can be trained, relearned, and re-accessed to the point where we can produce it at amazing levels anytime that we want. Once you do that, your entire life changes, which doesn't mean that you walk around blissed out every moment of every day. I certainly didn't. What it gave me, and what I believe it will give to you, is the freedom of knowing that at any given moment, you can turn on this state of happiness through your body and through your biology and literally light up feelings of joy. This is what I can do, and I can experience that anytime I want, for as long or as short as I want. And if I really want to close my eyes and go deeper into this state, experience profound states of bliss, and forget the world and all the stress and completely reset, then I can do that too. That reorganizes everything, makes life so much easier. I believe the same will be true for you. Because then, once you do that, you get to make choices not based on the illusion that something outside will give you happiness, but rather based on whether that thing will add to or complement the happiness that you already are able to access within. That makes all the difference in your ability to lovingly impact others and the world. And that's what I want for you. Thank you.